this be the moment where Doug Polk decides,
Come on.
yeah, you do too much of this.
I call.
Snap call by Adams.
Doug is going to hate this.
God damn it. Really? Oh my God, I'm destroyed.
The stage was set perfectly. The glory was one player away. YouTube personality Doug Polk was this close, twice, to winning a Poker Masters event. All he had to do was close it out, playing debatably his best format, Heads Up No Limit. Unfortunately, the gods were not on his side, and he finished in second place in his back-to-back final table.
Could this be it? It's a diamond on the turn,
he picks
but
up
now
some life.
he picks up one out. Yeah, but he trades 6 outs for that one out. He ends up making the 5.
So if you guys have been paying attention to poker this weekend, Poker Masters has been going down. It's a series of 5 events. These are turbo high rollers. There's 4 50Ks and then 1 100K, which is slated to start today. The person who accumulates the most cashes over the time wins the legendary purple jacket, and this is the first time they've done this event. So we're going to talk about the winners and losers, the good and bad from Poker Masters so far as we prepare for the final tournament to start today. You can see the overall standings here through Event 4. Stefan Sontheimer, who is a part of the Fedor Holz Germany crew, he's in first place right now. You can see Bryn Kenny, who's a regular on the high roller circuit. He's in second place. Nick Schulman, who's done a bunch of commentary for Poker Central, as well as plays high-stakes cash games for many, many years. Third place. Brandon Adams, the Harvard professor, took down debatably the best Heads Up No Limit home player in the world, Douglas Polk, to win Event 4. He's in 4th place, and then of course Doug Polk is in 5th place right now. Now if we take a look at the extended leaderboard, we can see legend of the poker world Eric Seidel, Matt Hyman, recreational player, the young prince, entrepreneur himself, Fedor Holz in the mix here, Jake Schindler, Stepan Shahalbala, Tom Marchese, Adrian Mateos, David Peters, Phil Hellmuth, Dan Smith, and a bunch of other names in here. So it all comes down to today, event number 5. It's 100K buy-in. The first events were 50K buy-ins. And now, it seems like it's shaping up to be that the winner of the 100K, if one of these top guys doesn't have a cash in the event and a bigger cash in the event, is going to take down the purple jacket. Now, it doesn't really make much sense to me that someone like Stefan Sontheimer can win an event against Fedor Holz, can make 2 other final tables, and almost make a 4th final table, but somehow not take down the purple jacket. And someone can come in, not play the first 4 events, just play the 100K event, possibly win it, and then win the purple jacket. To me, it just doesn't make much sense. It seems like there should be a point system that can award someone like Stefan Sontheimer who's put on a great performance. But this is the first year they've done this. Hopefully in the future, they'll be able to tweak it and make it a little bit better. I don't exactly know what that could be. I'm not a point system expert pro. I'm curious if some of you guys have some thoughts out there on what you think are a better way to potentially do it if this isn't the best way to do it. Now, we're not going to know for sure until the event starts and we figure out how many entries play the 100K to find out if the first place can actually win the event, but I think it will make for some good suspense as we go into the final table of the 100K in a couple days. Now, some of the big storylines coming into the event are, of course, Daniel Negreanu was making $50,000 side bets with everybody and their mother on social media. Unfortunately for Daniel, he's only had 1 cash, and outside of that, not looking that well for him. But, like I said, he still has hope if he takes down the 100K event. Of course, the supreme leader, Douglas K. Polk, he made a final table of event number 3. I woke up one morning, I decided, you know what, I'm going to give a free roll out there, and if Doug wins, I'm going to shave my head. And then Doug said, I'll shave your head. So I said, sure, go ahead, let's do it. Unfortunately, he didn't win that event, but then he made the final table of event number 4 as the chip leader, and I was pretty worried because he made it to Heads Up, and I'm like, all right, well, you know, he's not going to lose this twice in a row. But he did get second place to Brandon Adams, so for right now, my beautiful hair is still intact. It's still in shape. But to be honest with you, if I have to cut it, obviously I don't mind, otherwise I wouldn't make the bet. Now, the white magic moment of this tournament took place between Phil Hellmuth and the young prince Fedor Holz.
It's virtually all of it, and it works. And Marchese perhaps... Yes. Oh, is he going to show it? Wow, jeez, he shows the deuce 3 of clubs.
What the fuck are they doing? Wow.
Okay. Nice one.
Defended with deuce fucking 3. Wow. How do I not bust that? Wow. You guys play so differently than I do. I wish I could play with you guys every day.
We wish the same.
Really, Fedor?
Yes.
I have the best ROI no limit hold'em in history. Work on it and see where you can come up with.
They were playing at the final table. I believe there was 5 people left. Phil Hellmuth just got bluffed in a big pot by Tom Marchese. He started complaining. He started talking about, you guys play so much differently than me. You know, I wish I could play with you guys every day. And then Fedor instantly responded, we wish we could play with you every day too. And it seems Entrepreneur Life is treating Fedor Holz very well. He's definitely a little bit more chatty, a little bit more, you know, I think when you have $55 million in your account, I think that's going to make you a little bit more loose when you're playing at some of these big televised tables. Now, I don't know if Phil Hellmuth does have the best ROI in No Limit Hold'em history. If someone out there may want to break this down, do the math for me. Yeah, I would imagine Fedor probably has a bigger ROI than Phil Hellmuth, but maybe he means from an overall life perspective in terms of the people he knows or meets. I don't exactly know what he means, but I'm curious to talk to Phil and find out how exactly he came to this conclusion. All right, let's get to some winners and losers of the event so far. I think the IKEA Marcus breakout star has to be Stefan Sontheimer, who goes by Goosecore. Now, he's part of the German crew with Fedor Holz and the other German guys, and I know he played a lot of online poker previous to breaking out and playing a bunch of the high rollers around the world. I know he had a pretty good score earlier this year too, and obviously we can see this guy is a great player. You don't make 3 final tables and almost make a 4th final table in an event like this with some of the top players in the entire world, where there's really not that many recreational players in these events, without being very, very good and also running exceptionally well. And we've obviously got to see him play a little bit too so far, and I think that it's obvious this guy has a very bright future ahead of him, and we got to get him on the podcast. I'm going to hope to make that happen here while he's still in Vegas too. Another winner so far from the event, of course, the young prince, Fedor Holz. The guy plays at these events, gets 2nd place, maybe, maybe not, who knows, has some pieces of the other German crew. So I think it's going pretty well for Fedor so far. I think we got to put Doug Polk on the winners list so far. You guys know, people out there love players who final table events, whether there's 1,000 players, 100 players, 30 players, 20 players, 1,000,000 players. So for Doug to have 2 final tables back-to-back, including that 2nd place, I think he's got a good 3 months before people forget about that one. Losers for the event so far, I think top of the list for me is probably going to be Daniel Negreanu. Daniel had a lot of chatter leading up to this event, a ton of different side bets, a ton of action, people were excited, and unfortunately, he hasn't been able to really put anything strong together. Now, of course, there's very high variance in these events, and yeah, you can't really overreact from a small sample size like this, but we're going to overreact. Daniel, what's happening, man? Have you lost the ability to play? Are you focusing too much on vegan food? Are you focusing too much on the new hockey team in town? What's happening, Daniel? How are you not tucked out an event yet, buddy? Come on, 100K starting up today. Let's get after it, big guy. Let's win this event. Come on. I got a bet on you, sir. Let's take this down. If we take a look here at the official, unofficial buy-ins for the players, we see some guys at the bottom of the list just down a bunch of money. Our buddy Ben86, Ben Tallerine, down $350,000. Now, I think this is missing some re-entries too. But there might actually be a misprint on here. I see Rainer Kempe, who of course is a part of the German crew. He's down $300,000. That can't be true. There's no possible way no German is down that much money in this event. Ike Hollywood Haxton on there, Jason Kuhn, Scott Seaver, Sean Winter. You know, we see a lot of the American players on there, unfortunately, down a bunch of money. Now, we don't know how many entries are going to be playing the 100K today. And the way the prize pool works, there's no re-entries for this one, and they award a certain percentage of the prize pool depending on how many players show up. So I'm not sure how many players will need to show up for first place to take it down if the other players don't really have cashes in the event. So we're just going to wait and see. But my pick to win, and if this happens, I will make an epic video for him. My pick to win is still going to be Kid Poker, the vegan himself, Daniel Negreanu. I think Daniel's going to be able to pull it off. I think he's going to find the glory. He's going to find his heart. He's going to find his soul, find his energy. And he's going to be able to take down the 100K. And he's going to win the purple jacket and be crowned the poker master. But if not, obviously we're going to go with Stefan Sontheimer. This guy's been on a super hot streak. He's got the run good on his side. He's got the play good on his side. He's got the confidence on his side. He's got everything it takes, all the tools needed to win this event. Now let's talk about the Poker Masters event itself and the stream on PokerGo. So a lot of people out there have been pretty upset that they've only been streaming the final tables and not streaming the action up to the final table. On the first day, they had some of the preliminary action, but then after that, they only showed final tables for all the events, and some people really wanted to see. Now, from my standpoint, as someone who isn't necessarily a No Limit Hold'em tournament fan, it hasn't been that enjoyable for me to watch. It's kind of been boring. A lot of players that have been making these final tables, for the most part, aren't the most talkative people. Obviously, we had to see Phil Hellmuth at a final table, and that was enjoyable for me to watch. We had to see Douglas at the final table of a couple events, and he's chatting it up. He's having a good time. The other players look like they want Doug to die when he keeps talking. So that's been fun to watch. But I think from a poker perspective, I would like to see some of the preliminary action in the future. Now I can understand why that's not going on from a production cost standpoint. You know, if you have the camera crew out there all these long days for 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row, that's going to cost a lot of money. So I think from PokerGo side, they say, hey, you know, let's try to cut down on costs. Let's only show these final tables. But from a viewer side, I can understand why people would want more. And it does kind of suck for players who are from countries where they just can't play an event like this in the United States because of taxes. I'm sure they'd like to compete in something that's called the Poker Masters, but I'm not sure how that could possibly be changed in the future as long as these events are held in the United States. Now, the turnouts for these events, I don't necessarily know if I expected more players to come out. Obviously, right now, W Coop is going on, so you have a lot of players who may consider playing something like this, are grinding online, whether they're in Europe, whether they're in Canada. And of course, these fields so far have been very, very tough. There's really hasn't been that many recreational players that have been playing these events. I think the players being able to rebuy once turn some regulars and turn some businessmen off to playing in the event. Also, the structure being a turbo structure for the most part was a turnoff, I know, to a lot of players out there too. Now, once again, I don't know exactly how they fix this in the future, but I do think not having this run during W Coop is probably going to be a smart play for future runnings of this. I think one thing I haven't been the biggest fan of is that players who make the final tables and then go on to go deep in those final tables then are forced to late register for the next event. And now if you have a big score and you accumulate some cashes, your confidence is going high, you're probably playing pretty well, or you're just running really well. But either way, I feel like you're going to want to start off the event from the beginning. You want to play, you don't want to have to buy in when it's 40 big blinds or 30 big blinds, and then the blind levels go pretty quickly. You want to be able to start from the beginning and try to capitalize on the success you've had so far. Now, once again, I don't know how this could be fixed in the future, because I'm sure they don't want to make the events 2 days and that everyone who doesn't make that final table then has a day off. I think people come to town, they have back-to-back action with no days off in between. But for this being Poker Masters, I would think that the Masters who do well should be able to enter the next event at the start of the event to give them the best chance to compete. I think overall the event has gone down pretty well so far. I think people that are watching it have been enjoying it. I think it's a good way to package a series of high roller tournaments and sort of make it into something that it wasn't before. You know, before this, it's just 5 individual tournaments and that's it. Now you put those 5 tournaments together, you put some sort of system on there, and you award a prize at the end of it. Just a different way, something different to try. They're not having any rake on the entries that show up on time. I believe the re-entries are being raked. But it's a cool way to give back to the players who play these events. It's a cool way to give back value to poker fans who want to see the top players playing these events. And I think it shows that you can do something cool and bring a new idea to poker without trying to take as much money from players and fuck them over as hard as you can, which has become a regular thing from certain poker companies that exist right now. I think the biggest thing I've noticed so far is that a lot of the players that have been playing these events overall are very unknown in a lot of ways. Now, I've been around Poker World for a long time, now, and I know most of these players are. I've heard of them, obviously. I've seen them play probably once or twice. But I feel like the personalities that are on here, I don't know too much more about them. You know, obviously we got guys like Fedor Holz and Negreanu. We've known about those guys for many, many years. But some of these other guys, they're very quiet. And there isn't that much poker content really being produced for people to get to know who these players are. Now, in the past, there was a ton of content. Even the quiet people were just on television so much. They were being written about or discussed so much. And the way media has changed is that a lot of the content that isn't necessarily YouTube content from a small number of people, that content isn't necessarily seen by many poker fans around the world. And it doesn't just take one piece of content. It takes multiple pieces of content about different players before you actually start to know more about these people. And I think that's the biggest challenge moving forward, is that the poker media, you know, myself included in a lot of ways, if we want these events to be as interesting as they possibly can, the people who are playing these events need to be more known and just know more about them. And now they can do that themselves, but some of these guys, obviously, they don't really have much interest in doing that. And then that falls on the hands of the media to help create storylines and help tell these players stories. And therefore you're like, oh, I'm a fan of this person. I know this about him. I know that about him. I know that about him. So hopefully in the future, there'll be a better job done of that. But it's just tough because even when you do create a really awesome piece or an awesome video, you know, if it goes on a site like a poker news site or even Poker Central site or any of the other news sites out there, they're not really getting a ton of readers for these great pieces of content. And then that great content blends in with all the other content. And it's just hard for that good stuff to get found. But overall, I think it's been a very fun idea. I think it's been enjoyable to watch for poker fans around the world. And I am excited to see if we do have a sweat for the purple jacket. And it's some cool bragging rights to have. You have the purple jacket, put it in the background. I mean, it's cool. You know, people talk about the purple being gimmicky or copying off golf. You know, whatever, man. I think it's fun. I think it adds a little bit of excitement to the poker world. And I don't think it's doing any bad for poker. So, event starts today, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you guys tune in. It'll be a 3-day event. And let's see who is crowned the Poker Master. Are you excited to watch? Do you care? Do you not give a fuck? Let me know what you think. And thanks for watching, everybody.